Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. How are you all doing, gang? For those of you that are first-time listeners, I'm off to Mexico for a digital detox and drink cocktails by the beach to recharge my mojo. And I asked listeners to send in their cocktail suggestions. And I received an email from Ken Holiday in Chicago. His name is spelled Holladay, so I'm hoping I'm not being pranked. But he advised I try a Long Island iced tea. All the white spirits? Really, Ken? You seem like a guy that knows how to have a good time, so I salute you, my friend. And remember, keep those cocktail suggestions coming in by tweeting me at Neil C. Hughes and emailing me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, and I'll raise my glass to you while I'm away. But on with today's podcast. Now, I recently discovered a company called Hoard, which is a design-driven blockchain-based company that is integrating investments across cryptocurrencies and fiat currencies for a seamless investing experience. And this is where things get interesting, because the company was started by a former senior UX designer from Wells Fargo and an AI veteran from the US Department of Defense. The platform is focused on simplifying the way that everyday consumers can invest and spend their money, whether it's in Bitcoin, Ethereum or Fiat, and essentially reinvent the way people think. CEO Jason Davis and CTO Dan Lipert are seeking to introduce a technology that the world can adapt to. By first enabling individuals to adopt to it, they have to set out to develop a platform and a supporting mobile application to simplify the complexities of cryptocurrency and tear down those barriers of entry so that even your grandma can use it. Now that is my kind of language, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to North Carolina so we can speak with Hoard CEO Jason Davis. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, Neil. Glad to. So I'm Jason Davis, and I'm currently the CEO and co-founder of Hoard. I'm working with an impressive team, building out some really cool products for the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My background has been, I'd say most recently in the last 12 years, has been UX design, some programming, but mainly design. And developing things. I went from one startup called Legal Hub and shifted into the Wells Fargo role and worked for them for a few years and got my feel for finance and then left them, and now I'm getting my toes wet in blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Now, Hoard is a design-driven blockchain-based company that is integrating investments across cryptocurrencies and fiat currencies for that seamless investing experience. But can you just help set the scene a little and help listeners understand exactly what it is that you guys do, what problems that you're solving, and what makes you guys unique from all the other solutions out there in the blockchain and crypto space?
Neil, to that front, on the investing side, traditional markets are a lot easier to get into than cryptocurrency markets. The interfaces or the applications that are out there today are very, very simple. You don't have to really know anything about charts or order books or looking at trading dashboards. You can go in and do it yourself. It's almost DIY investing these days. That's still a little daunting, but it's much easier for you as a consumer to come in and just click a button and make an investment and watch it grow. Cryptocurrencies, they don't operate that way. There's not many, if any, platforms that are completely automated. I know Coinbase allows you to set up recurring investments into four or five coins right now. And they may open that up to more in the future, but not a lot of other people are doing this. But here's what makes us unique, I think, in the realm of investing. Not only traditional, which we soon hope take that layer of tech and put it in the traditional markets, but in the cryptocurrency markets, when you're faced with trading dashboards and order books and candlesticks and charting, you don't really know what you're doing, especially if you're new to this space or you're new to that world. And that's really a trader's world. It's not an investor's world. But that's what you're faced with when you go beyond the outskirts, or beyond the big corps, like, and I'll say Coinbase again, beyond the corps like Coinbase or CoinSpot in Australia. You can only invest in those assets. And we want to expand the breadth of assets that you can invest in a couple of ways. One is simply buying a coin, it's individually, or coin baskets, which are a collection of coins. And a basket is a traditional investing term. So we're going to be combining coin baskets with something called a rule-based investing engine. Another way to look at it is automated dollar cost averaging. And dollar cost averaging means you're buying on the uptrend and you're buying on the downtrend. And you're buying in little spurts as you go. And it's usually, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you didn't have to fight the market. You didn't have to try to time the market. You just kept investing slowly in an automated fashion. So it doesn't interrupt your life. You don't have to constantly stop and say, is now the time to buy? Is now the time to buy? Should I buy this one or should I buy that one? This rule-based investing engine is based around your financial life. So you're familiar with the company Acorns that rounds up your purchases. Well, this is just one rule. We have many other rules. You get paid, direct deposit. You can set the percentage and then set the coin or coin basket that money goes into. You can do matching every time you buy coffee or every time you buy something. And we're crawling these transactions, just scoping out the type of transaction they are. You can match that investment. So let's say every time you went to Starbucks, if you've gone every morning, you spend $4 on a cup of coffee. That's what you spend. That's expensive. But you can match that amount and put it into a coin or a coin basket every single time. So like every time you're making a move, you're making an investment with your money. So we feel like that's really unique. We also want to make that true to the traditional markets that doesn't currently exist today. We have to get into a brokerage house and not have to pay those astronomical fees. $5 per trade would not work if you're only putting $5 into an asset. So with cryptocurrencies, the advantage, therefore, I would say those who aren't used to the space or know it well, is these fees are incredibly cheap, almost non-existent in some cases. So you're not having to pay these $5 brokerage house fees. You're paying a simple ACH transaction fee.
What a fantastic concept. It certainly made me think twice before having a $4 Starbucks and a muffin, though,
Yeah. Well, one of the engineers on the team said, hey, this can work in a great way for a few reasons. He said, maybe it helps thwart you from buying so much coffee at Starbucks if you have a Starbucks habit you want to kick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe, but then you're like, oh, I'm getting paid to buy coffee in a way.
Yeah.
So you never know how it will go, but we don't want any of it to be negative, but yeah, it's got some really interesting ways that human emotions are going to play into this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it fleshes out.
And Hoard has a fantastic backstory too. So, can you tell me more about how the company was started by a former senior UX designer from Wells Fargo, your good self there, and an AI veteran from the US Department of Defense? Certainly feels like an eclectic mix.
It is. So it's always a great question. So I was working at Wells when I started to think about this. I learned about blockchain in 2013 when I was working at the bank. They were already talking about blockchain, but they were not talking about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. That was the last thing on their mind. So in this huddle of designers, we're talking about blockchain technology. I began to investigate, learn what it was, and learn cryptos. Bitcoin was behind it, and I was like, okay, I'm enamored at that point. Fast forward a few years, and I'm trying to get other people into the market. This is before the markets went crazy. This was early 2017, or late 2016, early 2017. And everyone I brought into the space where we're finding it was difficult. And I was getting 10 phone calls a day from one person. How do you do this? Where do you click here? I said, man, so I began to design an idea on how to fix these problems. And one of them came with automation, a little AI involved, some machine learning around cryptocurrencies themselves to kind of do a lot of research for you. And that was the basis of how the idea began to spring up. I put a design out on social media one day, and Dan, my partner, Dan Lipert, saw it and said, hey, it's really cool. I think we're aligned on some things. Let's talk. So we took it offline. We chatted, realized, hey, there's a lot of ideologies that we align on. We want the same things in the space. Let's partner up together. And he said, I can engineer just about anything, but I can't design. And I just said the opposite. I can design about anything, but I'm really not good at engineering. So it was a great match at that point. And we put a website out there. We talked about the idea of what we were doing. And slowly people just started coming. And by, I don't know, this time this year, so we're about a year into it now, we've got 30 plus people contributing to the project and helping us, see this vision through. So one little post on Facebook started to change everything.
Wow, man. It just shows you when you put something out in the universe, what can happen, doesn't it?
It really does. And to that point, there was commenters in the post saying, please, why are you sharing your ideas? Why you're giving out a public? You need to this, you need to do that. And I said, guys, you got to put it out in the world. You got to be willing to, you know, put it out there. And that was hard for some folks to understand, but you really have to put it out there. You're exactly right.
Absolutely. Now, the platform is focused on simplifying the way that everyday consumers can invest and spend their money, whether it is Bitcoin, Ethereum or Fiat, and essentially reinvent the way people think. But one of the biggest obstacles I always see in things like this is adoption. And just like in 1995, where Bill Gates struggled to convince David Letterman and his audience that the internet would change their life, you have a kind of similar task on your hands. So what is holding adoption back right now, in your opinion? And where do you begin to introduce technology that the world can adapt to and enable individuals to actually adopt it?
That is a great question. I think that's one of the foundations that our company is built on, is how, if we expect the world to adopt, we must make it, we must enable the individual to be able to adapt. Or if we expect the world to adapt, the individual must be able to adopt. And right now, it's not really easy for individuals to adopt. It's just not. But before I dive into that, I love the interview with Gates and Letterman, because he said, well, what can it do? He said, you can listen to the radio on the internet. And Letterman said, I can just listen to the radio. And you kind of look on Bill Gates' face. He laughed. He was like, but no. And Letterman, you could tell he just didn't get it. But here's something also anecdotally about the internet. 1994, I believe, was the first online banking payment that you were able to make in 1994.
Wow.
Now, you had to know encryption technology and transfer protocols to be able to make an online banking payment in 1994. Nobody knows what that is unless you're in that industry, right? Unless you're an engineer who's dealing with encryption and transfer protocols. Unless you're the guy who built the online banking payment system in 1994. And it's almost analogous to what we're dealing with today, or maybe we're starting to solve for today, which was looking into, what is this recovery seed phrase that you talk of, 12 or 24 words? What is this encryption? What are these keys that I have to use? This is very, very similar to what it was like in the early 90s when the internet came out and you were able to make online banking payments for the very first time. Remit money across the internet. So over the years, that was all solved. And I think over the years, we're beginning to solve these same similar problems that we're running into. These foundational, highly technical, highly engineered solutions, which working extremely well, they just lack design thinking. So the whole purpose, I think, behind what Hoard's trying to do, and we support any project in the space that's trying to do the same thing. No matter people call them like a competitor of ours, it doesn't matter. We want everybody to win. We want to lift all of these good businesses up. I think you have to make something adoptable. So here's some simple solutions, right? And many companies are starting to do this now, but maybe just 2 years ago, there was no way to make transfer cryptocurrencies to a peer without having to know or get their address, a key. To send, you got to send to this address, and you got to make sure that you copy it and paste it correctly, and you don't mess up. And then you got to wait for the block times, like sending a Bitcoin to someone. It was a bit daunting. You weren't sure. You're calling your friend 30 minutes later. Did you get it? He's like, no, I haven't got it yet. I'm concerned because you just sent him 2 Bitcoin when Bitcoin was $200. You're like, so what we're trying to do is interface that and do things like a username, right? So if you have a username or a handle, like you have on every other account, just send money to that handle. The traditional fiat apps do this today, like Cash App, Venmo, etc. And speaking of Venmo, we're also trying to approach our way of being able to transfer and transact with people in a similar fashion to Venmo, where you can just send any unit of value to an email, a phone number. They don't have to have a cryptocurrency wallet. They don't have to have the Hoard app. They don't have to have any education about cryptocurrencies, and you can still send them money. And that's the beauty, and I think what value exchange for us peer-to-peer is we're taking the notion of what Bitcoin's saying. You can be your own bank with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin doesn't provide the financial frameworks, the customer support channels, the simplified user experience, applications, just didn't come with that inherently. So we're the companies building on top of that. They're simplifying it for mom and pop. I want to be able to, my dad to come in and use the app and not be confused. Be able to feel confident he can touch a button and he knows exactly what's going to happen. And then one extra thing to that is that scalability factor where it's like, hey, a 45-minute wait time or 30-minute or whatever for a Bitcoin transaction. And a lot of chains are moving much faster these days, but make sure that this transaction can happen instantly, not wait on confirmation times. We can do off-chain transactions and make sure these things happen.
I love your approach of simplifying the complexities of cryptocurrency and tearing down those barriers of entry so that essentially even your grandma can understand it. And it's not even just your grandma. I mean, anyone that's got a relative or a friend that's seen something on the news or seen something on the internet and said, and know that you're in that industry, and they'll say, how do I buy Ripple? How do I buy Stellar? And they're fine up until they get to the Coinbase, or positioning themselves as the AOL of crypto, of course. But beyond that, their eyes just gloss over straight away.
That's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. AOL of crypto. I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to get that shirt printed, the AOL of crypto, and it's got Coinbase's logo on it. I'm going to send them to Brian Armstrong. I love that.
But it is a fantastic concept, and I have to ask, I mean, how are you going to break down the complexities of cryptocurrency for the mum and dad and the grandma then?
Well, I think it's how you back to design engineering or design thinking. Do you understand how Visa works? Does the majority of the world understand how Visa works?
No, of course not.
I don't think that they do.
Yeah. And
I think I say this all the time. Mass adoption is going to come when everyone's using blockchain and cryptocurrencies that don't even know they're using them.
Yeah, definitely.
That's mass adoption. When you don't know how the system works, but you don't care for one simple reason, it just works. You know that you can show up, it's going to work. Just like a bank, traditionally speaking, you walk in, you give the guy $100, you know you can come back at any moment, at any time frame in the future, and that $100 will be there. It will be a different $100 bill, but there will be a unit of value of $100. And I think with the way we're approaching the space is very similar to that, right? We want the most, we want the customers to be the most confident they can be when they look at our application or look at the industry, and they know that their money's always going to be there. They can always come back to it. It's never going to be gone. We're removing the risk of insolvency with how our platform works, so you don't have to worry about necessarily being hacked or our systems being hacked, because the funds actually live on your phone. They live in your world. They don't live in our world. But even that notion of you managing and you being your own bank is still a daunting thing. But when they realize, hey, this application is extremely simple, it's doing things for me in the background. They're taking care of all the heavy lifting. I don't have to know how it works. I can always just know that it works. And when I show up, it works. And that's ultimately how you get around the complexities. We need to get these interfaces, the applications, these use cases so dialed in that when an individual comes to use them, they intuitively know how to use them without having instructions. One of the best things I've heard in UX design over the years is the better your product, the smaller your FAQ.
So you're painting a fantastic picture here for the future. You've sold the idea to me. So I've got to ask, I mean, when are the launch plans for Hoard now? When can we expect this to come out?
Well, it's a great question. So right now we have a beta application out. Beta application is very limited in what it does, but it was a quick build that we're getting out to our communities, those ardent fan followers of Hoard, and we're going to give this beta app to folks. The company beta is currently in process. The public beta is technically available now. We haven't announced it, but there is a special URL you can go to and sign up for it today, and you can get access to it. But we're waiting for a couple of things before we announce it. But you can get in the application and help us bug it. Help us find any kinks in the armor, kinks in the code, anything that doesn't seem to work right. And that's our first release. We're looking to get the live production app, the very first product release, which is basically the Venmo of crypto. That should go out. We're targeting September. So that's our goals. We don't know if we're going to get there or not. It's not necessarily we're not capable. It's just a timing thing. We want to make sure we get all the bugs released and fixed before we send the production app out. And but yeah, that first it's a wallet. It works for Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchains. So it will be able to manage those assets. And you'll be able to send money to your peers, and they don't have to have the Hoard app or even a cryptocurrency wallet. You can just send them funds using you just sync up your device contacts on your phone, find them, send them some funds. Like you're out for dinner, and or whatever, and your buddy buys, And he says, hey, can you spot me that 40 for dinner last night? And you just, hey, here's one way I can send you some value with Litecoin or Bitcoin, and give him $40 worth of Bitcoin. He may not want it at the time, but you'll be able to send it to him, and he doesn't have to have anything. He'll get an email with a code, downloads the app, punches the code in, and gets his money instantly.
How cool is that as well? And that increases adoption straight away, because, at the moment people are like, it's not real. A lot of people think none of it is actually real and you can't do anything with it. But as soon as you buy somebody a meal or you buy someone a beer with crypto, then they get it, don't they? They kind of get that straight away.
100%. They completely get it right away. And now they're now holding it too. And if they've ever tried to experience getting into crypto, coming in from an odd angle, not necessarily through the AOL of crypto per se, but coming in from some other direction, it may have been difficult for them. And when they see something like this happen so fast and so quick and so seamlessly, they realize, wow, this is pretty real and this is pretty simple. And it's all on our devices, because it's like I was telling some of the folks in Vegas this past week at this conference, I guarantee you we will all lose our wallet and our car keys well before we'll lose our phone. It seems like we're always holding and staring at it. So, we feel we're pretty excited to see how this adoption comes in with this kind of ability on our application. And I hope many other apps will adopt this type of technology.
So will there be a Hoard token, an ICO? And if there is, what's the role of the token?
There will be a Hoard token. There's currently a main sale going on, a pre-sale that we're handling privately right now, but a main sale showing up soon in September. But yeah, so the token does many things. And for those that are technically savvy, I'm going to say something that you would understand on the blockchain front. We're like the 0x project, but for all blockchains. It's usually a very far-fetched term for most. So what that really means in a lot of different ways is that we can create any trade pair with our token. We can, and essentially, it's analogous to what's called an atomic swap. An atomic swap is a very interesting technology. I send you one Litecoin, and it shows up in the form of one, it's an equal value representation in Bitcoin automatically. I didn't have to do anything, right? It's all kind of baked into the technology. With this, atomic swaps are not very scalable right now. They're working on it, but there's a long way to go. But it's really interesting just to learn what an atomic swap can do. And ours is kind of let's get to it faster and make it just as easy without having to go through the process of atomic swaps, which is a highly technical thing to do. But you can basically wrap our token around any asset, and it's actually formally called wrapping. And you can wrap it around any asset and convert it to any other asset. So we're trying to create this environment where any alt can be any alt. Any alt currency can be any alt currency, or you can exchange one currency for another at the time of transaction. It could work for merchants. It could work for peers. That's just one way. It's also off-chain technology. So we're creating a side chain building on Ethereum. So Lightning built one for Bitcoin. We're building one for Ethereum. It's called the SMALG network. And that is basically decentralized exchange pipeline technology. So what we're doing is we're linking all the decentralized exchanges together so that customers on a Hoard can have maximum liquidity without dealing with the illiquidity of a single decentralized exchange. Most of these decentralized exchanges have very small liquidity, not much movement. But when you combine them all, you get a lot of movement. You get a lot of liquidity. So customers on the front end, they don't know the difference. They're able to get the asset right then when they wanted it and didn't have to wait, didn't have to look at a complex dashboard. And that's an off-chain transaction. These off-chain transactions have a settlement mechanism and a reputation system, which is the Hoard token. And so unlike some projects that are rent-seeking, basically you pay a fee on their platform in this one coin versus just paying the fee in the asset you traded or paying with dollar bills, we wanted to put real use case and real utility behind the coin. Other ways that, if you want to move Bitcoin across the Bitcoin blockchain, free Lightning, you had to wait. You had to wait for the confirmation times. In our use case, you can send it instantly. And it's just wrapped in our token. Contract is bought, the asset is dropped, and you are now, one Bitcoin richer 1 second later. And so that token does a lot, right? And you can also use it to contribute to our community. So you can bond it in these master nodes or these network of nodes. There's two types of nodes. there's an order matching node, and a market making node. And all these guys do are basically running brokerage houses, their own decentralized exchange on the backside. So that all this fun stuff that happens on the front end that we see is super cool and super fast. There's a lot of stuff happening on the backside to make it happen. And there's a whole community backing it up. And that's part of the decentralized exchange component of that, right? It's completely driven by the community, not the company. And you can also leverage our coin to create private channels, use zero knowledge proofs, and do these completely private transactions. So off-chain transactions typically are private, but if you wanted another layer of privacy, you can add another layer with the zero knowledge proofs, and our token integrates with how that process works. So there's tons of ways to use it from a consumer that doesn't have any idea how this works, and doesn't want to get involved with masternodes, doesn't care to learn what it is. There's one extra cool piece of functionality we'd like to introduce. We haven't nailed it down yet. I call it the community staking protocol. We'll probably give it a better name for consumers at the time. But basically, you can hold a little bit of the Hoard coin. You can bond it or stake it or kind of give it back to the community, and for 30 days, just locked up for 30 days in like an escrow contract or a smart contract. And you can transact across our platform in that 30-day period and not pay any fees. Anywhere where there would be a fee, that fee is now removed. And it's akin to a savings account, and how, hey, if you keep $1,000 in a savings account, we don't charge you a fee. Well, that's, to me, rent seeking. But in this case, it works the opposite. If you put money into the community, so you're providing liquidity, you're providing more coins to the market for our market to run, you won't have to pay any fees for your transaction. And after 30 days, you can take your coin back and put it back in your pocket, or you can keep bonding it for another 30 days and just keep it bonded and just not pay any fees. And we're pretty sure only a small subset of folks will use this tool, but it's going to exist so that people can put a little coin in the pot, give back to the community overall, and not pay any fees when they transact.
Incredibly cool. Now, I do appreciate it's very early days for you guys, and you've probably locked down to various NDAs at the moment, but does Hoard already have some significant partners or investors on board?
The NDAs, we do. We are working with a payments partner right now. It's basically an API aggregator that connects to banks that remits cash in seconds. So I can't drop the name just yet, but for us, it's a huge move. We're looking to partner because it does a few things for us. It provides us all the financial regulation we need without having to go through and being in an MSB, a money services business, or the money transmitter licenses, which this is a whole nother phone call for another day. I will go down a diatribe and get angry. So we got around that. We're not breaking any laws. There's just another way to do it. So we found the other way to do it. Much faster, much cheaper, and much more flexible per se. But anyway, they're helping us providing this financial regulation umbrella that we need. And they're also helping us remit cash. So Visa, for those that don't know, when you make a purchase at a merchant, right, your money is deducted from your account immediately. But in order for that merchant to get the cash, Visa has to settle that transaction, and that can take up to 3 days, up to 5 days. The merchant doesn't get his money for many days. Our API aggregator, our partnership, is going to allow that cash to be remitted to the peer or the merchant in seconds. So there's no settlement time of days. It happens in seconds. And so it's a huge win for us because there's a lot of technology and infrastructure we didn't have to build. Will just springboard us forward with our capabilities. And there's a lot of things that this partnership is going to be able to provide for us in the future. So there's that. And no mainstream big name investors. Everyone who's invested in us from private capital side have been private. A lot of them, as it's said in the industry, crypto OG, guys that have been around for a long time, those guys have invested in us in private equity. And we've got a few big names that want to invest, but can't drop those until we actually make it happen. I met one in Las Vegas 2 days ago. He's ready to go. So we'll see when they come in, but we still have a private equity round open. So if anyone wanted some equity in us, we're still open to the option.
So do you think that the challenge is not just about reinventing banking per se, but we've also got to reinvent payments too and move away from those band-aids such as cryptocurrency debit cards and actually work towards a new solution? Because that seems to be the direction that you're taking here.
Yeah, man. So I just did a panel talk on this, on payment technology. And I'm not the payment expert by any means, but I have worked for a bank. I did work on design for payment tech. I did get involved with the product teams that are building payment tech for banks. I've also been involved with companies trying to do payment tech for cryptocurrencies. And blockchain in itself is a payment technology. So, but you got to back up a little bit, Neil. You got to look at China.
Yeah.
China is kicking America's butt in payment technology. They're wiping the floor with us. And it's interesting how those systems in China came to be, but the fact remains that merchants can pay 0.5% at transaction. Visa in America, 3%.
Yeah.
So merchants are getting a far better advantage with their payment tech over there. And many customers that are the end users of these applications like WeChat Pay and Alipay, they don't pay any fees unless they withdraw a certain amount of money from the application. It's like a penalty. If you withdraw your money from the platform, you're going to get charged a fee. It's like 0.1% though. It's 0.1% is the fee of your withdrawal. So what we're trying to do is take the approach to payment technology like China has. Take the approach to really circumvent or navigate around banks, card issuers, and hardware cost. There's a great article Bloomberg did. I can't recall the name of it, so the title, but it wasn't done maybe 2 or 3 months ago. It's a great read. It shows you exactly how transaction happens in America with all the issuing banks, the authorizing banks, the POS hardware, the POS software, the card issuers. Everyone is in the middle taking a fee. It's 4 or 5 fees on a single transaction. And that's a lot of fees. So what we're really trying to do is circumvent or navigate around all of that so that no one's taking all these fees and give that savings directly back to the merchant. We want to charge them 0.25% and then whatever the market rate to convert an asset is, which could be 0.25% or less. So maybe 0.5% is their transaction fee, right along the same lines as China. So that's the first step. Being able to remit that money directly to the merchant and not have any middleman. We've got to get that step solved. We got to get the POS systems integrated with what we call QR payment technology, which is the same thing that China's using. They use a QR code. You just scan it. And they're currently working on a newer solution, which is simply biometric payment. You've probably seen some cool commercials on this. You walk in the store, you grab a Coke, and you walk out.
Yeah.
You didn't have to say hey to anybody. You didn't have to open your phone. You didn't have to pull out a card. You walk in, you walk out. Well, they're already advancing that technology. So right now, we're just trying to get cryptocurrencies into the payment space and be a viable payment option for merchants, and it's really not. It hasn't been historically, and I don't see many solving that problem now, and so we want to solve that problem. And we want to give anybody the capability to transact the asset that they want to, providing it's liquid enough to do so. The merchant can receive it if they want to, or that asset can be converted automatically into fiat currencies at the time of transaction. And then that partnership I told you about would then remit that cash to the merchant in seconds in their merchant's bank account. So they're getting paid in real time and receiving and settling in real time.
Wow.
And for what, a 70% discount?
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? What? It makes you want to go back to Visa and the banks and be like, what have you guys been doing all these years? You're robbing us.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's how the systems work in America. I'm sure I know it works similar ways in other countries. So, we just want to be able to compete. People say, you're competing with banks or Visa? I said, actually, no, we're just navigating around them. They're playing in the old world that charges high fees.
Yeah.
I mean, take, for example, the EVM chip in a card. You're familiar with the EVM chip cards, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there was a mandate that all POS systems upgrade to take EVM chips, I don't know, 6 years ago or I think 6 years ago?
Yeah.
3 years ago? Nobody's done it. I mean, half the merchants I walk into, you insert the card, you don't swipe, or you swipe the card, you don't insert it because they don't have the tech. So anyways, that's one of the examples where we're like, hey, it's just a simple QR code printed on the screen or printed out on the ticket. Take the Hoard app, scan it, pick the asset that's liquid that you want to spend, and that could be fiat money that you hold in our account, and you just remit the payment. No card involved. There's no need for a card. Because in the cash market, there's literally no need for a card. It's a ledger. It's a centralized ledger. Neil has one. Jason has zero. Jason moves fiat currency from the Hoard app to you. Jason has zero. Neil now has one. I mean, you're just updating ledgers. It doesn't have to be so technical these days. We don't need cards. Card issuers don't need to exist, in my opinion, anymore.
So can I ask you to look into your crystal ball and just say, roughly ballpark kind of figure of how far away we are from mainstream adoption of cryptos in a world where workers are paid in digital currency, they spend digital currency, and the beginning of the flippening that we often read about?
Oh man, that is a
loaded question and a half, eh?
Yeah. This is where the trolls are going to come out and start memeing me because I said it wrong. Here's what I'd like to say. We have no idea when that flippening is ever going to happen, when it's going to happen. But we do know that there's an encroaching market that's taken over antiquated technologies.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier on the podcast, I think mass adoption is truly going to arrive when everyone's using it and they don't know. So when people look for payment tech, maybe they find Hoard as a payment option and they use it to make a payment. And it's seamless, it's simple, it's easy. They don't need a bank, they don't need a card. I think when you start seeing other applications, other platforms like this exist, and they're everywhere, and merchants begin to say, hey, you can pay us in any cryptocurrency you hold, if it's got any value to it. When people start getting paid in cryptocurrencies, that's when you're going to see this world completely transform. But those are two very fundamental things that we as humans, we need commerce, right? We need to be able to transact. And so the basis of all this is going to be, are people able to get paid in a digital token? And our merchant's going to be able to accept that digital token. And that's us. That's where we all have to work. We all have to get paid. We get paid in these square paper rectangles, is what it's a funny video I watched recently. We all get paid these paper rectangles that we don't even get to hold anymore. Just go straight into some digital ledger we don't get to control anymore. So I think that's where the adoption comes, right? Are people getting paid in digital tokens? Are they able to do commerce in digital tokens? And does the other party, the counterparty, do they want that digital token? And as soon as that relationship happens, I believe that's when mass adoption starts to pour in.
Fantastic. Well, there's so many talking points here. So before I let you go, I've got to ask if you could remind the listeners of where they can find you guys online at Hoard, and also contact a member of your team if they've just got any questions at all.
Awesome. Well, Neil, first, thank you so much for taking the time with me and wanting to talk to me today. It was really awesome. Love talking about Hoard. So I just wanted to say thank you for the time today. And if you want to find me or anyone on our team, you can search us on LinkedIn. Just look for the Hoard company directory there. You can find us and chat with us on Telegram, if you're into Telegram, or you can find us on various social media channels like Facebook, Twitter, and the like. So we're all over the internet. We're very public people. We're out there. So to search our names, Dan Lipert is the CTO. GP is our Chief Products Officer. Brian is handling business development for us. Brian Haynes. Again, my name is Jason Davis, and you can find us online.
Fantastic. Well, I love your guys' approach, and like I said a few moments ago, of how you're simplifying the complexities of cryptocurrency, tearing down those barriers of entry so that even your grandma can understand it. And I did dabble in this about 18 months ago, I think, when 10x came out, and I thought, I'm going to show the world that cryptocurrencies can actually be used. I signed up to it, but I never got the crypto card. But you've made me think here.
Oh, no.
I never got the card, but you've made me think we don't even need cards, and or if they were saying Back to the Future, cards, where we're going, we don't need cards. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on today.
Hey, Neil, thank you so much.
Man, Jason is an incredibly cool guy that I could have talked to for hours. And he's really got my head buzzing with ideas because so much of what he said today really resonated with me. We keep talking about mainstream adoption, but we need to realise that the average person does not care about tech. The technology has to become invisible and seamless. And I loved his scenario there of being with a group of friends and seamless and saying, I will pay you my half of the meal in Bitcoin or Litecoin. And a few swipes of his smartphone and his friend has the money. Because that is the point where people get it. That's the big conversation starter where they say, he bought me a beer and a meal and sent me money from his phone in real time with cryptocurrencies. we're heading into an exciting future. But maybe that's because I love tech so much and I love how it's transforming businesses and the old way of doing things and moving towards a better, more efficient future. But what were your thoughts after listening to Jason today? What do you think about the concept that Hoard is bringing to life? As always, email me techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. I do hope to stay in contact with Jason, and this is a project that I will be following with great interest. So a special thank you to Jason for his time today, and also a big thank you to each and every one of you that have listened to the show today. I do hope you'll join me again tomorrow, but until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.